Welcome to the madness of March. That's right. March Madness is now officially underway here. This is, of course, mic'd up on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, and throughout the Now family of networks. I'm Mike Asti. That is Mike Vukovcan. And we are going to give our thoughts and maybe predictions and maybe a Final Four pick or so of March Madness for the end of this show. But before we get there, any day that ends in Y includes NFL news, really. The NFL owns every month of the year. That includes March, and the NFL certainly has been all over the news. The Pittsburgh Steelers, who we covered Steelers Now, have been all over the news. So we're going to touch on some moves by the Steelers, bringing in a veteran quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, still spending other money. Kevin Colbert basically spending money as if he's a guy who's not going to have to deal with any of the consequences of this money. So it's kind of fun. It's a new Kevin Colbert, just freewheeling cash and so much more. We also will touch on the favorite topic of my friend there, Mike Vukovcan, of the new transfer rules around college sports and now especially college basketball and how that is impacting several of the teams that we do cover throughout the network. Especially my alma mater of West Virginia, we cover at WV Sports Now. Yesterday. Yeah, they're all over the news as well. I almost laughed when you texted us. Big day for WVU Newswise. Yeah, not too sure how much was good, but they're out there. And how that program's going to be. And also, just for a little aside, I'm also really excited for Bob Huggins, who is going to be part of the TV crew. Him and Frank TBS. Tremendous. They're going to be great, but not only am I surprised Huggins is going to do it because he loves talking. He's a great soundbite, but I don't know if he likes a scheduled, regimented thing like that, but he's going to do it. And they're going to eventually, I'd imagine, ask him about Oscar Tshiebwe and Kentucky and his thoughts. And that's going to be must-see because I have some videos that if he doesn't give the same thoughts, I'm going to wonder what changed. But nonetheless, before we get there, the Pittsburgh Steelers do bring in a veteran quarterback in Mitch Trubisky. They gave him a 2-year deal, not a one. Former first-round draft pick, in fact, second overall, did lead the Bears in a worse roster than the Steelers have right now to a playoff berth. Is a former Pro Bowler. Not great, but he's had his good moments for sure. He comes in now to compete with Mason Rudolph. You figure, though, he's QB1, at least as a bridge. They bring in Miles Jack. They give him a contract. That's a pretty big underrated signing to bolster the linebacker crew. Other teams, Marcus Williams, the Ravens, help their secondary out. Von Miller going to Buffalo. The AFC also getting tougher with some teams also making moves. But what are your thoughts on Kevin Colbert spending, the Steelers spending, using some of that salary cap space they have this year, and in particular, Mitch Trubisky coming over, because that has been the polarizing topic. Some believe you might as well just stick with Mason. He's not that much better. Let Mason be the bridge. Some, of course, as you know, just hate Mason Rudolph for whatever reason, and they wanted anybody else. Some think Mitch Trubisky actually could maybe be something, and he was in a bad situation with the Bears and a backup with Buffalo, and maybe isn't worth that much. And some, of course, had the thoughts of grandeur that, they should have actually gave up tons of draft picks for Aaron Rodgers, who ended up staying in Green Bay, Russell Wilson, who goes to Denver, or even Deshaun Watson, who's dangling out there, but of course going to command tons of number one draft picks because he's not going to court. Was the Mitch Trubisky signing a good one for Kevin Colbert and the Steelers?
I think to this point, Kevin Colbert and the Steelers and Omar Khan have
Omar Khan, to be fair, because he's going to
have been masterful.
Kevin Colbert's retiring.
Have been masterful as far as I would give them to this point. I would give them a B+ for everything they've done. Couple things. I'll do Trubisky first. I like it for the fact that it's a 2-year deal. They didn't tie themselves down, locking him in for 4 years or anything like that. It's an incentive-based contract.
Right.
He'll be your starter this year.
It is an incentive-based contract. That's key.
It's a nothing contract as far as it won't kill their cap, regardless of what happens. And it also still protects them, not protect, but it still allows them the possibility to draft a quarterback in the first round if somebody would slip. I think it's
Okay.
just I think it's perfect. I think one thing.
And if somebody doesn't slip, it's not a big deal because you have Mitch
right,
Trubisky's only
exactly.
27 years old,
Right.
also, mind you, 27.
Exactly. So they can do what they want. The board is open for them as far as what they want to do. If one of their guys, for whatever reason, would fall, they would be in a position to draft him. Trubisky would be the starter. This person, whoever they would draft, could have a year of figuring things out, learning the system. One thing I think this does is I think Mason Rudolph is done in Pittsburgh. As far as I would be surprised actually if he makes it to camp.
You think they're going to trade him, or and maybe he's asking out now?
Because they're not.
He did go on shows saying he thought he had the job now.
Yeah, they're not keeping three quarterbacks. They just signed Dwayne Haskins to a tender yesterday. They're not paying a third string quarterback $2+ million. That's not happening. So I would be surprised if Mason is still here by the time they go to Latrobe or wherever they camp this year. So as far as the cap goes and what they've done, I think this is actually a really good. This speaks well of Omar Khan, I think, and this is almost an addition on the job. The way the biggest thing they've done, I touched upon this with Trubisky. All these contracts are low years, not a lot of money. The way he's been able to maneuver the cap as far as with these deals. Not a lot of these guys that they've signed are making a lot of money if you really look at their whole contract as far as guaranteed money. Great job by the Steelers. They've touched almost every one of their needs. I still think they need to pick up a cornerback and a wide receiver, but huge fan. And, I know a lot of people are making the Steelers are spending blah, 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 blah. Well, yeah, they're spending because they've had money to spend.
They finally do. They didn't have any last year. And Mitch Trubisky, $7 million a year for the two with an incentive laden deal. Miles Jack, who again I think is an underrated move. They needed help linebacker wise. If TJ misses games, if the Devin Bush continues not to work out, then you have an extra help here who's been a great player for Jacksonville. Schobert is gone by Pittsburgh, 2-year, $16 million, so 8 per. And a lot of this isn't the exact money that counts against the cap either. That gets complicated. But they're not in any way killing themselves. They still have opportunities to spend. And I don't think Juju's back, but there's actually still money there that if he can't get any job, he could come back on a team-friendly deal again. They have room still as we're talking, despite these moves they've made.
They have plenty of room, and I would expect them if they want to sign. They could sign anybody if they want to right now, but if they want to continue to sign, they have plenty of ways that they could free up money.
Like Joe Hayden is still out there. There are players on the team they still maybe could bring back.
Yeah, his I don't know, his deal might have gotten sealed with Levi Wallace signing
probably. Unless Hayden's willing to take a lot less, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if there's a room for him. Wallace is going to be a starter, and Cam Sutton. They need to figure out who their other safety is going to be.
Yeah.
I think they need to get another wide receiver. But great job by Kevin Colbert, and $80 million on 5 new free agents. So that's what actually happens when you're not paying a quarterback $25 to $30 million. That's when teams that's the stuff that can happen.
Have a chance to win. But Russell Wilson's gone now. But the reason why it got harder for the Seahawks over those years, they won their championship and got into the Super Bowl when Russell Wilson was on a rookie deal, and they had these players before they hit big. Once they had to start paying them, it got tougher and tougher, and you see player after player having to leave and drama and then a trade. The Steelers not kind of have that situation a little bit now, potentially. Not saying they're going to win a championship, but
and that's what the Chiefs did before they had to pay.
Right.
Now they're going to find it trickier to fit all these guys in. Cincinnati is in this situation.
They're in that situation now. They have a window.
The thing
now.
Is, when you have a good young quarterback, a very good young quarterback, you got to strike early. You got to win before he starts making the big money, and you're paying all the people around him. And I think the Steelers are going to be in that situation. They need to find their quarterback of the future. Mitch Trubisky isn't their quarterback of the future. That's yet to be determined. But whoever the Steelers quarterback of the future is, I think you would agree, Mike, is that the biggest thing that the Steelers have done this week is take care of an offensive line that was pathetic last year.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whose quarterback of the offensive line is not better. Right.
Yeah, and now they have now they have options up there. They've signed 2 guys. They're going to hope some of the younger guys develop. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they go and try to sign another veteran or somebody like that. But great job by the Steelers in what they've done. And I think a very underrated signing is locking up. He's not a guy that's going to get a lot of headlines around here. But I think considering the age at that position, I think locking up Montravius Adams to a 2-year, $5 million. It's another, all these deals have been 2 and 3 years. I think at the end of the year, he showed that he could play, and being behind, if all these guys return to it, Hayward and Alua, that's a pretty good backup to have in there in case somebody gets hurt. So I don't think anyone right now has much criticism for what the Steelers have done.
Well, you would think. Unfortunately, there are people.
There's somebody out there. I don't know who it is.
There are people out there, and I guess the argument for people out there, outside of the thoughts of grandeur of Rodgers and Wilson, that I never believed had any chance. And once Wilson didn't end up having to go to trial, once the Texans said, okay, he's not going to trial 3 number 1 draft picks, the Steelers, nope, you don't hear them in rumors any longer. They're not going to give up 3 number 1s with all these needs that they have, especially with an O-line that's been so beat up, and also Zach Banner is gone from the team. So they're willing to kind of have this be a new era. They're cutting bait. They want to, you got to be all in. They're retooling, and this is an important offseason, of course. And yeah, the first round, I do think a little bit that they like Willis, they like Pickett, but they kind of know part of the Trubisky move too. I think they kind of know, unless they trade up or if somebody falls, as you mentioned, they're less likely to be getting Pickett or Willis. They could both be gone at 20 if they sit there. I wouldn't be shocked if both of them are off the board. They don't take a quarterback at pick 20 or even trade back, because if you don't love a guy, you shouldn't take him. We've discussed that before. And bringing in Mitch Trubisky, young enough, has a body of work that has been solid at times, can be a bridge for the next year or so. And next year's quarterback class is going to be deeper. So I think they're in a situation right now that if they have to go with Mitch Trubisky as QB1 and then worry about the draft again next year, they're not upset at all. I think they have some confidence of what they've seen in Mitch Trubisky and the fact that they agree he was in a bad situation with a worse team, that can be enough of a bridge. He can win them 7 to 10 games. And yeah, Mason Rudolph probably is gone, but what Kevin Colbert said before the offseason to caution people that want him gone is he wanted to have Mason compete with a veteran. I don't know if I'd be shocked if they don't let them compete, at least in camp, to maybe push Trubisky and say, it's not like he's Aaron Rodgers. They're going to bring him in. He's likely QB1, but I wouldn't be shocked if they let it linger to let Trubisky know, hey, you got to compete for this and then make a move after camp or late camp. We've seen that before.
I think the guy that I think the guy that's maybe not getting talked about enough is Haskins. I really do. I think they brought him in last year, and last year was sort of like that, like I mentioned.
Like, why not? Low risk.
The rookie quarterback sitting around watching, learning, observing, figuring out the Steeler way, getting all the bad out of him from Washington.
Right.
He was under almost like a probation last year. He passed that. And they gave him a couple $1 million. And like I said, I think he's a guy that maybe fits in a little bit better with Matt Canada's system. And I think he's the guy that I think it's going to be a battle in camp between him and Trubisky. I really do. And then they'll sign, either they draft a young quarterback or they, maybe sign, just another throw, they always have Josh Dobbs there.
Who knows? I mean, Haskins' mobility does provide that argument for you. And he did have that solid preseason game, even though the last one was really, really bad. But Tomlin, I was there at camp. He did yell Mr. Checkdown, which was not a compliment. I think the issue with what Tomlin believed Haskins was very quick to dump it off if he thought he was in trouble at all. He wants them to maybe try to make a play, try to make a big play at times. But there was a whole year learning. Who knows what he'll be this year in camp? Yeah, they're clearly not done with him by bringing him in. You're not just giving $2 million to somebody for nothing. And it does feel like he may be, I don't know if it's so much I believe he's going to be competing with Trubisky, especially if Rudolph's gone. I do think this is Trubisky's job. I would be shocked if Trubisky's not QB1 to start next year at this point. And if it's not Trubisky, I don't know if I believe it to be Haskins, but Haskins there, he's going to get a shot. I don't know how much they love him, but it'll depend on the draft. It'll depend on the draft next year. If they feel like they can get a QB next year in the draft, I don't think they're going to be scared because of Dwayne Haskins. I don't know how much they love him, but they have two former first-round draft picks on the roster right now in Haskins and Trubisky. And honestly, Rudolph was a third-rounder. So they have three young quarterbacks, two of them first-rounders that are likely going to be around for at least a year or so. If they don't get a QB in the draft, they're not, I don't think, too upset.
That was going to be my point right there, Mike, is that people forget, obviously everyone doesn't forget, but Dwayne Haskins, just a few years ago, 3 years ago, was a top 10 pick. Right. It's not like they're trying to resurrect, Duck Hodges or, Gardner Minshew or something like that.
And a lot of it was personality and drama and celebrating and going to strip clubs and not studying
stuff, right? Growing up and acting like you're an adult. And I think that's what last year was about. They had to see whether he could do it for a full year. Didn't cause any drama.
And be humble. Be humbled. Be like, you're a first rounder. You messed up. It's not our fault. It's your fault. And I don't think they even wanted to blame Washington. It's your fault, Dwayne. And now you're QB3 under Mason, at the time under Ben. Take that humble pie. That might have been part of it too. Yeah.
I really don't think Mike Tomlin has wiped away any thoughts of him. So the more I'm looking at things, I'm thinking the Steelers in the first round. He was at Georgia and Clemson yesterday.
He was
checking out their pro days.
Always goes to Clemson. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking at the Steelers taking a defensive lineman or a middle linebacker here in the first round.
Possibly. Yeah. I don't think it's QB unless something. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Unless something goes wild where Pickett or Willis fall, and I don't think that's going to happen based on the teams that are still in need right there, well in front of them at pick 13, 11, 10, 9. Steelers are at 20. The Browns with the Baker Mayfield drama there, I believe, at 13 now. They might be drafting a QB if that continues. So, I think it's unlikely for the Steelers to have a chance at their guy unless they're willing to trade up. I don't think they're going to. And I think these moves have kind of made them say, okay, if someone falls in your lap like Aaron Rodgers did for Green Bay, or it's happened before, okay. But otherwise, yeah, we have tons of other moves. And honestly, Mitch Trubisky could absolutely be better than what Ben was the last couple of years. He could certainly be better than what Mason Rudolph was, as long as the O-line's better. So the Mitch Trubisky hate that's out there when he hasn't even taken a snap is a little bizarre. The numbers are okay. He has done it in Chicago before. He's not been great, but we will see. Have the Steelers are spending money. They bring in a veteran quarterback. I don't see what's not to like really about this offseason either, unless you had weird thoughts of grandeur about trading for Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson or trading up to get Pickett or Willis. Unless you had those thoughts, which I never really did. Outside of that, this has been a solid offseason. Again, Jack, a very solid move. That's been underrated as well. They need a lot of help otherwise. There are still moves to be made. The Juju question's still out there, but the Steelers offseason right now is improving. This team is better. And yeah, the O-line is where it's all about as well. Now, Mike, before we get to the madness of March on the hardwood, after talking the madness on the gridiron of March, and that madness on the gridiron is going to continue to be madness, I'm sure, the rest of the month and certainly into April. It always is, but right now this is the month of March Madness for college basketball. The college basketball news that's also been out there is about players transferring and the transfer portal running rampant again. Bridges, Cottrell leaving West Virginia, and obviously the horrible year the Mountaineers have just had. Other programs dealing with this as well. We've had coverage all through our networks of Nittany Sports Now, Pittsburgh Sports Now, of course, WV Sports Now. We've touched on this before. It is not slowing down in any capacity. Where do you stand? I already know where you stand, but do you have a rant for us?
I'm not going to rant. I'm going to keep it short here, but I just think I'm probably going to write something about this over the weekend because it annoys me to a point. Not to a point. It really annoys me. But transfers in general, the transfer portal has ruined college sports.
I've seen that opinion out there. That is a shared opinion.
I don't know how anyone would disagree with that. It's just awful both ways. And I know the players, and this is something I'm gonna get into. The players get a lot of the blame for leaving, picking up when a situation isn't right. And the thing the fans have to watch and be guarded about is not totally when they see a player leave. It's not necessarily, it's not always their choice. This is
sure. You mentioned that about Duquesne and what Ambrot did a year ago. We talked about the Xavier Johnson situation with Pitt.
It's going to go on with Pitt here.
Right.
They're going to be losing a few more players here over the next, who knows, could be happening right now. But they lost earlier this week, a couple of days ago, Noah Collier. It happens everywhere. Robert Morris, a lot of times it's players leaving. Pitt and Duquesne and other programs, it's a two-way street. Players leave because they don't like the coach. He looked at them wrong or, whatever.
That exists.
He sneezed in front of them. So, so you're pissed off and you're going to leave.
Right.
But it's also a coach needs scholarship availability. They swung and miss on a player. They don't think he's going to develop. So we highly encourage you to transfer.
Yeah.
It's just
you need a change. You had a bad year. You need a change.
It's not meant to be that way.
It's being treated like a pro situation.
Exactly, and it ruins programs. It doesn't allow coaches for when the players leave. I'm going to touch upon the player side here. It just it screws up their recruiting board as far as they think they have a player for a few years, and then that player X leaves. It changes the way they coach, who they are. Somebody like I doubt that Bob Huggins is too long in his career to really care about that.
No.
But a younger guy, might not coach the same way for fear of, or might treat somebody differently because you're worried about pissing somebody off.
Yeah. And there are some people now, Huggins getting critics that are saying that you're a Hall of Famer, but you got to change a little bit in this new era. He's not willing to do it, but that there are some that argue that that's a problem. Oscar Shibwe, player of the year, maybe he's going to lead Kentucky all the way through the tournament. That was kind of Huggins being stubborn. It kind of led that to be a drama. He's now at Kentucky. That's a criticism.
Huggins and Dambrot will be the same person they are. They're not.
They will. 100%. They don't care.
Change with the system. We'll see about Jeff Capel, how he does. But it's just, I just have a bad taste in my mouth over this whole thing. You wake up every day. It's all on my phone, George and I, who's transferring next.
Yeah.
It's just, it's bad. I think it's a bad look for college basketball, for college sports in general. It's not just basketball. When you go through the tournament, that's all you see. It's not how they get, their starting five or starting rotation. Half of their rotation now is acquired through the transfer portal. It's just,
it's hard to build, and it's hard to go from, okay, 1 year wasn't great, but this team will be better because they're going to be together another year and they're building chemistry together. The word chemistry is gone in college sports. Yeah. Or even Baylor's national title last year. All of a sudden, I don't think anyone really was following Baylor, and it's like, wow, they're going to win a national championship. That never would have thought out of Baylor, and they do it off of transfer. Texas Tech years ago, the Big 12 become this college basketball powerhouse the last few years, and a lot of it is just roster change after roster change every year in the current rules. It fairs it up from coaches being able to leave. I totally get the player freedom, and you got to make it fair, but it has totally run amok. You did mention players sneezing could certainly cause someone to leave and hurt the coach, and it's harder to coach now. But also, it is the reality, and Huggins in particular made these comments of, we're going to change. If you don't want to do it my way, get out of town. And then you see these transfers. We don't know in-house if he didn't eventually. Bridges has not nearly been what he's supposed to be. The man getting 6, 7, 8 points. People thought he could get double digits. Huggins might have sat him down and said, hey, we're going to need to move on. But then you're treating it as if you're a program who's releasing a player as if you're a pro team. And even if that's okay, maybe that is fair with the players leaving, the coach got to be able to make decisions too. That doesn't feel like college sports, but maybe it's really not anymore. It's really not college sports anymore. It's almost a minor league system, really.
Yeah,
what it is.
It's a business, and that's why I think fans from now on, I said this last year and I'll continue to say it, it is not a big deal. It is not program crippling. It's not a black eye on your program.
If a player transfers, right?
If a player transfers, it's like breathing. It's like
another day.
Now.
Yeah. You can find someone else. Player transfers from you, even if you didn't want him to leave. Some other team's going to lose a player as well. You can go block them. There's always
it happens
available.
Everywhere. It's the way it's going to be, and because I know locally, Capel and Dambrot get ripped for the last few years about the players leaving, but fans shouldn't do that. It's just a sign of the times, unfortunately. It's the way it is, and that horse is out of the barn and ain't coming back. So it's going to be. It's
sprinting. It's sprinting down the hill out of the barn here. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti. We're going to close up shop here on Mic'd Up with. You want to give your final four picks? You have any thoughts on teams you think are going to make a Cinderella dark horse run? Do we have a VCU George Mason situation, Loyola Chicago? Any opportunities for a random high seed to make a run? Do we see a Michigan State with Izzo, who didn't get talked about all year, underachieved, and all of a sudden Izzo in March can make it happen? Villanova's been quiet, but they've been a recent powerhouse. Can they do something? The Big Ten has 9 teams. Are they going to get any past the second weekend? Because none of them really.
They lost one last night. So
they lost one last night. But it also doesn't appear that the Big Ten has any real true powerhouses, unless you believe in Michigan State. Michigan's been underachieving despite normally being that team. The Big 12 has a bunch, I believe 6, and they've recently gone far. But I
don't have. I'm looking over my one of my brackets here. I've done 2 of them, but this I don't have anyone going past the. Winning more than 2 games. I'm going to be
in the Big Ten.
Yeah, no. In general, double digit seeds as far as upsets you asked about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty boring here with pretty boring with that. I'll just give it real quick. My final 4 it's really boring. Gonzaga, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Kansas. Okay. I have Kansas and Kentucky.
Tennessee's a 3. Okay.
Yeah. Kansas and Kentucky in the final. And I have Coach Cal cutting down the nets. So I'm going with the Kentucky Wildcats.
Okay. I wouldn't be shocked. And that would really complete the worst season of Bob Huggins' 30-plus year career. That really would do it. That would be the explanation point, the absolute worst season of his career if that would occur. But it could very easily happen. Oscar Tshiebwe might be that one player rebounding-wise, his size, his ability to shoot 2, that could take over this tournament. It's absolutely right there for the taking. I have Kentucky, Gonzaga. I have Arizona. And then I have off the board of Iowa State. That's a team that I think maybe could make a run. They were real good earlier in the season. They faded. Not too confident in it. The Midwest is kind of a crapshoot, honestly. But the only team that I will mention that they're not a high seed that I think if they get out of their first weekend, they could make a run. They've been better than a lot of years. People dismiss them because they're underneath Gonzaga in the same conference and they're not a major. St. Mary's. I think they actually are better than they normally are and hung with Gonzaga in every one of those games, showed they can beat Gonzaga. If they get out of that first weekend, because that bracket's not too tough with Baylor's leading scorer out, so they're not fully healthy. Yeah. North Carolina's not as good as they were supposed to be. Marquette maybe could do something, but that's a team right there. But you always got to watch for some March cockroaches in a wide open field like this. Michigan State, Villanova. No one's talking about Villanova at all. They're a 2 seed, and then it's a wide open bracket. So Tennessee's interesting. They were a team that they won their conference tournament. They didn't move seeding. But yeah,
Luke and I were filling out our brackets last night, and I was saying I had as hard a time picking these games. I just think they're so even. I really do.
It is tougher this year. Yeah.
And I didn't have the guts to do it just because I didn't want to, like I said, I used the word boring. I could see so many, and I just didn't have the guts to hit the button to do it. But I could see so many double-digit, double-seeded teams winning, like New Mexico State over Utah, Vermont over Arkansas.
Vermont's been a pick for some. Yes, I've seen Vermont.
Davidson, with the way they're able to score. I think Indiana's going to win a game. I think they're going to beat your St. Mary's team.
Okay. And they had to play in to get there, but yeah, that could be.
Indiana. Virginia Tech. I just think there's so many.
Virginia Tech is red hot right now.
Yeah,
they're red hot.
10 seed or higher that have the possibility. I don't think any of them have a chance to, go Sweet 16 or Elite 8. But I think they have in this first round, I think they have a chance to ruin some brackets.
Yeah, there could be some bracket busting. Absolutely, for sure. And that's what March is all about. So you got to love this type of field here. Who knows? Throw our brackets in the trash. You can laminate them if you want, but you never know in March. You could be the person that hasn't followed all year long that could end up picking teams off nicknames and logos. And
my wife,
she's won before.
Last year for my poll, I remember I wanted a couple more people to enter to hit a number. So she said she would do one.
Yeah.
And before she started school, she filled out a bracket at school. She knows that she hasn't watched half a second of basketball last year. And she finished third place in my poll.
See, there you go.
Took out $300. She didn't know basketball from a hockey puck.
Yeah. And, there you go.
And she got
congratulations
third place last year.
Yeah. So that's what March is all about. Yeah, there you go. Jay Billis and company. They're spending. They're right now. They're researching and throwing out predictions that it could mean absolutely nothing. Yeah, that's what March is all about. We have March Madness in Pittsburgh this weekend, so that's really, really cool as well. Even if we don't have any local teams with our network that are in this tournament, we at least have some games here in the market here at Pittsburgh. So that's cool. Yeah, March Madness is certainly upon us, whether that be on the hardwood college basketball wise, whether that be off the court with the transfer portal, whether that even be in the National Football League. This is